Hi everyone, how many of you suffer from this experience where you can understand a language, for example English, yet you cannot speak the language? Well, in today's episode, we are going to talk a little bit about this phenomenon and how you can actually handle with this situation. Is it normal or not? Well, this phenomenon is very common, especially when we are learning a second language or a foreign language, like here in Indonesia, where English is spoken as a foreign language. Very often, especially students, because I'm speaking from experience, they have this kind of difficulty. They do understand what I'm saying, but yeah, it's really difficult and it's really hard for them to speak to utter what they have in their mind. And this is caused by several common problems. And number one is that different skill sets. That is one of the common symptoms why we suffer from this experience. Understanding, which is comprehension, and speaking, which is production in a language, are two different skills. Oftentimes we are exposed to learning experience like we are learning through reading or even through listening. These skills are categorized as a passive skills in which we provide ourselves with input, and that is really good because input gives 80% of your productive skills. But if you focus a lot on what is that receiving information like through reading or through listening, and you'll never practice, and that what happened to you understand what people are saying in English, but you cannot express yourself fluently in English. So different skill sets, that's number one. And then number two, consequently, because you provide yourself with too much input and you never practice, the second cause is that lack of practice. Speaking, everyone, requires practice. We talk this very frequent with Fatma, especially in speaking. Speaking is like a playing football, is like a playing skills, like playing volleyball. If you don't practice, because we have mouth muscle in our mouth, but you don't practice using those muscles, it will be really hard, including me myself, because I live in Indonesia, and every time I don't speak English, it will be a little bit hard for me to utter properly, to come up with such a what is that pronunciation. And then number three, you might fear from making mistakes. This is quite common. Many English learners are afraid of making mistakes when speaking. This fear can make them hesitant to speak. We are hesitant. We're not confident because, okay, that is what blocks us, what hindered us from speaking. And then number four is that mental translation. How many of you still translate things in your head, right? When you're learning a language, you need to immerse yourself in English language. I mean, the culture, how the sentence is, commonly constructed, how a certain expression is commonly used. So you cannot always do like direct translation from your native language to English. That's called mental translation. If you are still translating English from your mother tongue, it will your brain is going to work in such a way, and what is that, hold you back from speaking, and this is very common. Those are the four causes of why we oftentimes understand what people are saying, and then but we cannot express ourselves in English very properly. And to improve those, here are the following things that you can do. Number one is that practicing regularly. Being regular doesn't always mean that you spend a lot of time on your desk doing a lot of exercises. No, but try to find opportunities to speak English if you have spare time. I believe in your 24 hours, we do have 5 to 10 minutes a day to really practice improving our English. So practicing regularly requires commitment, right? And then number two is that don't fear mistakes. If you're afraid of making mistakes all the time, as I said earlier, you're going to hold yourself from speaking fluently. Remember that making mistakes is part of the learning process. We talk this very often. And then number three is that think in English. How to think in English? There are a lot of English, tips that focuses on this, how to think in English. But for me, if I'm speaking from experience one more time, how to think in English is that you you avoid translating from your mother tongue. What you can do is that do direct, speaking English by trying to find the definition of the word that the definition of the word in English. For example, you can see in Oxford Dictionary what it means, what something means in English. Or even now, you can have a lot of AI that helps you figure out the situation. And the last thing is that imitating native English speakers. If we imitate native English speakers in this way, you'll speak better because your input is pretty much influenced by native English speakers, for example. So listening and exposing yourself to real life English is pretty much important. As I have been doing, because I live in Indonesia, I don't live in an English speaking country. What I can do is that I try to connect to those resources, listening to different number of podcasts every day, and then trying to practice regularly. Maybe not, it doesn't have to be very long. It can be like 5 minutes or even 10 minutes a day. That's more than enough. So that is the way, how you can actually get out from this situation. So one more time, if you have these difficulties in speaking, while you can actually comprehend what someone is saying, those are the four things you can do. If you like this video, try to share, or if you have something to ask, just let me know in comments. And see ya. Yeehaw.